A bomb, a parachute, $200,000 in cash, and one mysterious man with an absolutely wild plan. D.B. Cooper jumped into the night, never to be seen again, but could he really have survived? Okay, let's get the big question out of the way first. Why has there been zero progress identifying D.B. Cooper? Cooper's real last name probably wasn't, well, Cooper, and his first initials weren't D.B. In fact, the FBI archives say that the D.B. moniker wasn't used by the suspect. It was a mistake on the part of the media that never went away. Cooper's actual plane ticket read Dan Cooper, and that's it. In the 5+ decades since Cooper launched himself from Flight 305 with $200,000 in cash, around $1.5 million today, the FBI has investigated over 1,000 suspects. But one specifically stood out, and allegations of their crime only surfaced very recently. In 2024, siblings Shante and Rick McCoy III came forward and said that Cooper was their dad, Richard McCoy Jr. They've apparently got a ragged shred of a parachute to prove it. More on this in a sec, so stick around. In the meantime, Cooper's own generic appearance has proven the perfect cover. He was described as white male, 6'1", 170 to 175 pounds, age mid-40s, olive complexion, brown eyes, black hair, conventional cut parted on left. This, plus the suit and sunglasses, means the description fits a whole lot of people. We know that D.B. Cooper pulled off the most notorious heist of the 20th century, but this inspires another question. How did he think he could get away with such a bonkers plan? It's not like he planned a bank heist with a mask and a getaway car. And the plane didn't even have the money on it. It landed in Seattle where he was given the money, after which he ordered the pilots to fly toward Mexico City. And then he thought, well, if I want to get away as quickly and as far as possible, I'll just use a parachute. When you take a step back and look at the bigger picture, the whole thing is pretty bananas. FBI agent Larry Carr, who was put in charge of the Cooper case in 2007, might have found an answer to this line of questioning thanks to some talented internet sleuths. They uncovered an actual Dan Cooper, the name that D.B. Cooper gave when he got his plane tickets, not on the streets of any city, but in the pages of a comic book. There was a French-Canadian comic called Dan Cooper that featured a Royal Canadian Air Force pilot of the same name doing things like parachuting from the sky. The cover of issue number 7, dating around the time of the hijacking, even shows the fictional Cooper parachuting from a plane. Carr thinks that this might be where Cooper got his idea from.
You know what I love more than comic books? The possibility that the alias Dan Cooper actually comes from one.
Lots of people have asked our next question. Was D.B. Cooper's bomb even real? Folks would do well to remember that at the time of Cooper's crime, airports were way more relaxed than they are now. We're talking no metal detectors, no x-ray machines, no attendants poking around in bags while wearing plastic gloves, no nothing. You can blame Cooper for many airport security procedures after he waltzed onto Flight 305 with a potential bomb. Potential being the key word here. In the same way that there was no security measures in place to discover if Cooper was actually carrying a bomb, there was no way for those on board Flight 305 to determine if the bomb was real. When Cooper opened his attaché case to show the flight attendant what was inside, she saw a case containing wires and red sticks. Cooper said it was a bomb, and so she believed it. She had no choice. But is it unreasonable to assume that the bomb might have just been a bunch of junk in a bag? It's like the pointed finger gun and hoodie pocket trick. Sure, it could be a fake out, but is it worth the risk? If you're wondering what became of the alleged bomb, well, Cooper took it with him. He assured a flight attendant that he'd either defuse it or take it with him, so if it was real, it's sitting in a forest somewhere. In 1980, a youngster found a crucial piece of evidence related to the D.B. Cooper case, a bag that held one of the 4 parachutes that Cooper demanded, in addition to $200,000. As the FBI explains, it contained $5,800 in $20 bills that matched the serial numbers of the notes given to Cooper. This might seem like some kind of breakthrough at first, but what does it actually confirm? Of course, the bag would have landed on the ground along with Cooper and his other bags. Here's the problem with that. The spot where the money was found, called Tina Bar, is just a bank on the Columbia River. The spot doesn't match up with the flight path, so how did the money get there? One theory is that a 1974 dredging operation dumped it there. Another theory is that the flight path is off a bit. And of course, there's the theory that the money washed down the river and just ended up there. The other question is, where did Cooper go from there? Plenty of folks, FBI investigator Larry Carr included, think that Cooper didn't escape after parachuting, but died. The FBI calls Cooper's nighttime skydive a dangerous proposition for a seasoned pro, and we have no idea if Cooper was anything approaching pro. Carr thinks he worked as a plane cargo loader at one point, and that's it. Cooper's clothing and shoes certainly weren't suited to parachuting to safety even if he jumped in the daytime, let alone in the pitch-black sky of a frigid late November Washington night right into a dense, vast tract of forested terrain. The bag discovered in 1980 might be all that we'll ever find of Cooper. Mind-blowing stuff, huh? Speaking of finding stuff, so about that parachute we mentioned earlier, there's a number of issues to the 2024 discovery of a parachute that allegedly belonged to Cooper suspect Richard McCoy. The most obvious is, how did the parachute make it from Washington State to North Carolina? The next most obvious is, why save it? Well, it turns out that not all parachutes are created equal. According to the YouTube page DB Cooper Sleuth, the Cooper parachute and the recently discovered one were two different parachutes. Just another thing in this case that doesn't make sense. It might seem obvious what DB Cooper wanted when he rolled up to the Northwest Orient Airlines at Portland International Airport back in 1971. He wanted money, plain and simple. He probably envisioned being loaded with cash and reclining on a sunny beach somewhere, sucking down cocktails, end of story. But that very simple conclusion draws us into a bunch of mismatched reasoning and further questions. Folks might be inclined to think, oh, how brilliant of DB Cooper because every step of his plan worked, from the bomb threat to the hostage exchange to receiving the money and parachutes, etc. And he got away. But that's a stretch. First, he handed the skyjacking note before the plane even took off. The entire thing could have gone sideways before they were even done taxiing. Then he strapped 19 pounds of cash to himself to jump into a pitch-black rainy sky over a bunch of trees. So obviously he likely died for his efforts, because it doesn't seem like he planned his nighttime forest landing and post-landing too well. The only cash related to this was discovered buried on the beach we already mentioned, so clearly he never spent the rest. Ultimately, Cooper might be less of a criminal mastermind and more of an inspired idiot. If so, he pulled off his heist because of some combination of audacity, guts, and luck. This sort of thinking brings us around to the central unanswered DB Cooper mystery. What's his story? What led him to do what he did? Was it really about money? Amateur Cooper sleuth Eric Eulis said this exact thing to Oregon Public Broadcasting in 2021, and Eulis is the one who co-founded CooperCon, which, is a real thing, an annual convention for Cooper enthusiasts of all stripes. Eulis echoed something lots of sleuths have surely thought. I want to know who the real guy is, the real story. For now, such questions remain unanswered.